Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the program. It's hour number 2. Thank you so much. It's the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are building a liberty machine. I want to welcome back to the program State Representative David Meeks is back with us. David, welcome, sir.
Well, hey, thank you, and appreciate you allowing me to come on your program.
Absolutely. You're always welcome. I'm kind of a little late on this. I know the news broke a week or two ago that you were not going to be seeking re-election for your state representative, your district. It's District 70, isn't it?
That is correct. Yep, includes the great city of Conway, a little bit of southwest Faulkner County, and the eastern part of Perry County, including half the town of Bigelow.
Okay. So just kind of give us the lowdown. What brought you to this decision?
Well, our founding fathers, I think, really laid out the game plan. They didn't want you to stay in office forever, and just being challenged in a number of ways about how long a person should stay in office. Went back, and Thomas Jefferson, that was one of his, I guess, regrets, if you might say, that they didn't get term limits put in the Constitution. And studying, he recommended 9 years there in the Virginia state delegation. And so, I pretty much going into this session, I had either thought, well, we'll make this the last one or possibly one more at the most. And, just going through this session, it was a rough one. We did do a lot of great things this session. But there was a lot of other things that, you get punched in the gut and all that. But I mean, ultimately, it's about my family. I know you hear that from politicians and from folks a lot, but, since I was filed last time, we've adopted 3 boys. We currently have 4 other foster children in the home. And I just, realized that I could not put forth the full commitment, the full effort that I needed in order to be an effective state representative. And so I think it's just time for me to kind of pull back. We'll have 8 years in. We'll continue to, work until all the way up until next session and somebody else takes over, continuing to fight for, conservative values. And then we'll let somebody else take that and run with it.
Wow. Well, I mean, I'm going to press in a little bit because, it sounds like your family situation is. First of all, I think it's great that you adopted. I think it's great that you're helping out in the foster system because they certainly need guys like you, David. So, that's the first thing. The second thing is, you said you got punched in the gut. And you said going in, you were thinking about running for another term. So did the lack of party principles being implemented, was that a contributing factor in you deciding not to run?
It was a very small factor. Again, family was obviously the overriding thing, but, there were days there, that, things happen. And, right then and there, I just wanted to say, I'm done. This is going to be, I'll continue to serve until my term's up. But, there were just several days that I wanted to just say enough. I'm out. I'm not going to run again. I think probably the biggest thing was the way that the veterans tax cut was handled. Where they tax the taxing, they put the tax increases in with the veterans tax cut. And, as a conservative, you make a promise not to raise taxes. But then also, too, the thing that I've been fighting for the last 4 years was to get that tax cut passed. And so it was like one of those two things. No matter which way you voted on the bill, you were going to break a promise that you make. And I hate breaking promises. If I'm going to make a promise to somebody, I want to keep those promises. And on that bill, I had to either break my promise and raise taxes, or break my promise, that I was going to support veterans. And thankfully, the veterans understood. I talked to a lot of veterans. They understood where my heart was. Thankfully, we were able to get other things done for veterans. But just being put in that situation, we should have never been put in that situation. So, I think that's probably the one thing that really sticks out in my mind. School choice, we fought hard on that one. 76 Republicans couldn't get that one passed as well. That was another disappointment. And so I think, again, overall, we had to step back, pull back, and let other folks, maybe come in and hopefully be able to pick up that ball and run with it.
Are you thinking about running for another office, maybe a smaller office of some kind, at a more local level? Or have you thought about that, David?
Well, I appreciate you asking that question. My whole thing was that I was not going to get into any other elected position. I was just going to pull out completely and see what doors God has would have opened for my family and I. And, lo and behold, you've had people call up and said, hey, would you run for this office? Would you run for this office? And out of respect for them, I at least am exploring that option. I think right now, probably the one that I'm really looking at very closely running for is the Faulkner County judge position because, regardless of whether I do it in elected office or do it in some other way, I want to serve this community. I want to serve this state. I'm not going away, as they say. I still want to fight for conservative values. I want to fight for Christian values that our country was founded upon. So, regardless of the decision that I ended up making, I'm going to still be in there. Again, I've got children. I want them to grow up in a better country than what I grew up in. And so there's still a lot of a fight left in me, and I want to just try to do what I can, to continue to press those conservative values.
We're talking with State Representative David Meeks from District 70, and he has decided not to seek re-election. You heard him talk about how he's considering running for county judge now, Faulkner County. David, I appreciate you coming on. I guess I want to ask, and feel free to take this wherever you want to take it, but this is just an observation from, I try to watch as much news as I can, and a couple weeks ago I saw where John Brummett, which I'm assuming you would agree with me that he's a liberal journalist. Yeah, he's a liberal. Okay, so he comes out with an article, ASA 2.0, and there's some subheadline as well, but he's essentially, the way I read it, essentially endorsing the re-election of Asa Hutchinson. And so my question is this. Back on November, whatever election day was in November of 2014, when the polls closed at 7:30, and by 7:34 they had called the race for Asa Hutchinson, do you think anybody in that Republican ballroom down in Little Rock would have thought that, fast forward, to today, that John Brummett would be writing an article like that? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, honestly, I don't pay too much attention to what John Brummett says, and so I have not read the article, so I don't know what what kind of things he said about Asa or anything of that nature. So it'd be really tough for me to comment specifically, on why he may have said what he said. But I guess when you're talking about 2016, stranger things have happened. And it seems like some of the craziness of 2016 is carried over to 2017.
Hey, yeah, that's a good point. That is a good point. I mean, the overall premise of my question, that's just one example. There are other examples of what I consider to be a statewide media that is hostile towards limited government. And there seems to be a support of the Republican establishment that's in power right now. And
Right.
that's really my overall observation of that. And because you would think if we were really making the strides that I feel like some people in the leadership claim we're making, the media would be having a much bigger fit than they are. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I know national news media. They obviously slant very liberal, and really try to spin and everything. But just working with some of the local news media, now I can't say all of them because I haven't worked closely with all of them. But a lot of our local news media actually try to get things right. Try to get things at least balanced just a little bit. And again, my perception and all of that. So, them not going after Asa maybe as much as the national news might go after Trump, that really is not concerning to me as much as what's really and actually happening. And we're seeing, and so, there are a lot of things that I wish, Asa, Governor Hutchinson would have, moved forward, been more bold on. But I'm looking at big picture. Number one, I'm hoping second term he is a little bit more bold on everything that he does, if in fact he is reelected, which I expect will happen. But I'm really wanting to see some really good groundwork laid because, again, this is way too early forecast. I'm really excited about the future of the state of Arkansas, especially when I see a person like Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin waiting.
Yeah,
and
that's a big deal.
Somebody of what he came out today with his tax reform. Asking that tax reform committee to be bold about the reforms that they're wanting to make to really, just sky's the limit. Let's put everything out there type mentality. And so, hey, again, not happy with everything that Governor Hutchinson has done, but he's done a lot of good things. I think he's laid a good foundation. And really, I'm looking long-term, hoping second term he'll do a little bit more, and then we can get somebody like Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin in there who really can carry forward, a lot of great conservative forms, maybe in the vein of like a Governor Walker, and really, put Arkansas toward the top when it comes to, tax relief and business climate and everything.
Sounds like you're kind of describing Asa Hutchinson as a transition governor. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, because when you have a big thing like we have with our state, obviously, again, you want to try to move things faster along, but, we are moving things, I think, overall in the right direction. Hopefully we'll learn from some of the mistakes we've made in the last two sessions, and really be able to set up, some really good things either in Asa's Governor Hutchinson's second term or, again, way too early, but, we'll say a Governor Tim Griffin in 4 or 5 years, set something up. So, again, we can really take a look and see very similar things to like what we're seeing up in Wisconsin.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this, I may not share your optimism, but I certainly would say, if the ideas of Tim Griffin were actually being taken seriously, and if, I would be the first to say, that's fantastic. And I don't care who implements it. But, I kind of feel like you do, David, and I'll slightly agree with the idea of kind of, boy, wouldn't it be nice, these ideas kind of feel like they're waiting in the wings, Lieutenant Governor Griffin's. And it's like, why can't we have those now, and the reason I feel like as Arkansas taxpayers we can demand it, aside from the fact that we're overtaxed and overregulated and overburdened, this is what Asa and the establishment that currently is in control of the Republican Party, this is what they ran on. And so to say that, this whole process started in 2010 when Republicans started actually, making grounds in Arkansas, we finally get a Republican governor in 2015, and that we may not actually get, if you believe the task force is going to accomplish something, we may not really get bold reform until January of 2019. That's an awful long time to see that change. Government certainly moves slow, but I think a lot of people want to move a little faster than that.
Well, I mean, I'd absolutely agree with you, and we've tried to push it to be a little bit faster. But I think, unfortunately, the timing of it, and it's just my thoughts that there's still, and again, I guess for lack of a better term, there's some fear. People saw what happened in Kansas, and they account that, the Republicans up there moved too quickly. And now they have this huge budget shortfall that is going to have a very bad impact or negative impact on the state. Now, I haven't talked to anybody up in Kansas to know how much of that is true and how much of that is spin, but, they see some of those things that have happened. I mean, really, you can look at Kansas, but I think, and again, I hate to keep harping on it, but you got to look at Wisconsin and see what they've done, and see a lot of the bold stuff and all of that. So I think, when you look at what happened with Kansas and what happened with Wisconsin, right now we're kind of running straight down the middle, and we really need to be running more to the right. But, we're moving, I think, in the right direction, and I want to be optimistic, because, again, I see a lot of things happening behind the scenes that are good, that we don't normally see. Number one, people say, well, we've increased state spending, but overall we've decreased the amount when you add in state and federal funding, and I hope that trend will continue. We've seen a decrease in the number of state employees, and so I hope we'll continue to see that trend continue. And so I think, yes, it's moving slowly, but I think we're laying a good foundation for the future for us, again, to really move the ball forward in our state.
Yeah, I hope you're right. We had David Crow. Is he one of your constituents, David Crow?
He is, yes.
All right, we had him on last hour, and he was saying, he mentioned the fact that we are reducing government employees, but we're doing it at a pace. In order for us to be competitive with contiguous states, it would take us 35 years at the pace we're going now to actually get per capita our government employees on the same average with the states surrounding us. So, I mean, I think we can agree it's moving slower than we want it to move. That's for sure.
Well, and I think the biggest impediment to reducing the number of state employees is our retirement system. That's something that's not really talked about. But again, in order for us to maintain our current retirement system and not have to, have this huge bailout or huge shortfall, you've got to have a certain number of state employees that are paying into the system. And so I think we've got to do some retirement changes in order to not have that issue crop up. And so, again, we changed it over from a defined benefit to defined contribution, which is really, move that ball forward. And then I think you can see that transition happen much quicker and get us to the place where we want to be on state employees. State
Representative David Meeks, I appreciate it, sir. Best of luck to you. Thank you for your service out of District 70. And anytime you want to come on, you just let me know. I'd love to have you.
We'll definitely do that, sir. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you, folks. By the way, speaking of Wisconsin, Governor Scott Walker, go look at his tweets from a couple of weeks ago. We covered him here on the program, a series of tweets where a Republican governor in Wisconsin calling out Republicans in his own state for wanting to raise taxes.